And so it's official, the 2023 JET program season has begun in most of the participating countries, while some have yet to start accepting applications in the coming weeks. For the 2023 JET program, the general guidelines are the same as in the previous years or as in the previous batches. However, due to the global pandemic still around and some other factors, there are a few updates or modifications that are inserted, but generally the contents, the general guidelines, the qualifications are still the same. So for this video, let's have a quick look at the general guidelines used by all participating countries in selecting the JET program participants, whether for ALT position or for CIR positions. And let's also try to see how the JET program Philippines goes by the selection process in comparison to the other countries with the biggest delegations or biggest participants in the program. And yes, the Philippines is among the top 10 countries that send the most number of ALTs or CIRs every batch year. In case you are curious, so the top 10 countries in the JET program are, of course, we have the USA, UK, we have Australia, Canada, New Zealand, Ireland, we also have Singapore, we have South Africa, Jamaica, and of course the Philippines. So for reference, I'm using the Embassy of Japan in the Philippines website post, as well as the guidelines used for JET Program Philippines. As I've mentioned earlier, I tried to look for the websites or the general guidelines for the top 10 participating countries. However, some countries are yet to start with their screening process or with the application period. So I only have here data from the Philippines, of course, from Australia, New Zealand, Singapore, and South Africa. By the way, I already have a previous video on the general guidelines for the JET program Philippines, so I'll be sharing the link. You can just check it out after watching this video. So for a recap, let's have a quick look on the application guidelines for JET program Philippines. So JET Program Philippines or the Embassy of Japan in the Philippines opened the application in September 12. So for this announcement, the position is only open for ALTs, though usually the ALT position and the CIR position are opened at the same time. So for the key duties and responsibilities of ALTs, we have here 3 main duties or tasks. That is to assist in the preparation of teaching materials, planning and supervising extracurricular activities for students, for example, English club or sports activities, and organizing cultural or international exchange programs. Because JET program, or JET, stands for Japan Exchange and Teaching Program. So cultural or international exchange is an important part of it. As for the eligibility requirements, I've mentioned this in my previous videos, but let me just emphasize on this part: not have participated on the program since the 2020 JET program year or have participated in the program for more than 6 years in total. So I think those who were not able to complete the 5-year maximum years of participation in the program have to wait at least 3 years before being allowed to apply again. And then not have lived in Japan for 6 years or more in total since 2013. So, which means that those who are currently living or residing in Japan and who are interested to apply for the program can still apply, provided that they have lived here for not more than 6 years. And then, important note, an applicant's ability to use English language accurately and appropriately will be assessed based on the information he or she will provide in the application documents, as well as the results of an in-house English exam. And then number 2, the screening process also involves a teaching demonstration in English and a Nihongo conversation test. So, since JET program has 2 parts, that's English language teaching and cultural exchange, it is important that an applicant must have the capacity, the ability to teach English language as a foreign language. And then for number 2, as I mentioned, I tried looking for the general guidelines for other participating countries in the JET program, and I noticed that only the Philippines has this part wherein demonstration teaching in English is part of the screening process. So again, I mentioned this in my previous video before. The organization that handles the JET program has the right to modify their guidelines, the general guidelines, depending on how they see it appropriate. And then there are also tips and reminders from the Japan Embassy in the Philippines for this year, which in the previous years are not present or are not included in their post or in their announcement. So read and follow the guidelines and instructions carefully. That's an important part of the screening process, your ability to follow guidelines. And then fill out the forms, all forms that require your personal information, you have to fill them out. Write your statement of purpose. There you go. I also have a video giving tips on how to write your statement of purpose or your SOP, so you can check it out also. And then collect and complete your documents. Of course, if your document requirements are incomplete, they couldn't proceed to your evaluation or assessment of your application. And then also note that only those listed document requirements should be submitted, and those that are not in the list should not be included in your package of application. So for example, resumes, photos or headshots, extra letters of recommendation, certificate of attendance, appreciation or recognition, don't submit them anymore because they're not part of the screening or the evaluation criteria. And then prepare a teaching plan for the teaching demonstration, prepare for the written exam and interview if you are selected as one of the shortlist applicants. That is, if you pass the first stage of the screening process. And then important note also from the Embassy of Japan in the Philippines, you have to compile your application documents into 3 separate sets and then put them all together. So that's 1 original and 2 sets of photocopies inside a brown or transparent plastic envelope. Do not use clear books, do not staple the forms and other documents. And then do not send any requirements separately. You have to put them all together in one document before submitting to the JET Program Philippines Screening Committee. Let's skip to the other parts. There you go. As I mentioned earlier, only JET Program Philippines requires a demonstration teaching for their applicants. As part of their screening process. This is the first time for JET Program Philippines to include this in the documents to be submitted. So you have to print this slip and cut it and then attach it to the original copy of your application form. It contains information on your name, age, the degree obtained, current affiliation or current employment, and then if you have teaching experience, whether it's classroom teaching, in actual classroom, in actual schools, online teaching, and then tutorial and others. As for the deadline of application for JET Program Philippines, that's November 22nd, 2022. It's a Tuesday. So you can submit your applications in 2 ways, that is via post or courier, through LBC, Grab, Lalamove, TokTok, or whatever. Or you can personally hand it over to the JET program that's in Japan Innovation and Cultural Center, Embassy of Japan in the Philippines, in Rojas Boulevard in Pasay City. So you can just inform the guard on duty that you're going to submit your JET program application. And don't forget to bring valid IDs. As for the timetable of the application process, so from 2022 September to November, that's the submission application period. And then by mid-January, the results of the first screening, wherein only those applicants who are qualified to advance to the second stage will be receiving the emails. And then by late January or mid-February, the interviews are going to start. The interviews, which include the in-house English language test, the demonstration teaching, and the Nihongo interview test. And then by late March to early April, the official results of the second stage of screening will be released. So, however, it will only be by May that the successful applicants will be notified of their placements. And then by August is their departure for Japan. Now let's have a quick look on the application guidelines. So the following application guidelines apply to ALTs and CIRs. The Japan Exchange and Teaching Program seeks to enhance internationalization in Japan by promoting mutual understanding between the people of Japan and those of other nations or those participating countries. It also aims to enhance foreign language education and promote international exchange at the local level through the fostering of ties between Japanese youth and foreign youth alike. So again, if it has not been made clear yet, JET program is not just about English language teaching. Along with the language education portion of it is the international exchange program. Let that sink in. So those who are accepted in the program are to serve in local authorities as well as in public and private elementary schools, junior high schools, and senior high schools in Japan, including special needs schools. Let's jump into the types of positions and their duties. So there are two types. So for the roles or for the duties, assistants in foreign language classes in elementary, particularly 5th and 6th grade, junior high school, and senior high school. Assistants in foreign language activities in elementary school, that's for grades 1 to 4, because it's not a required subject. I mean, English is not a required subject. Number 3, assistants in preparation of materials for teaching a foreign language, which starts on the day after their designated arrival date, and that's for 1 year. However, it is also generally possible to renew participation up to a total of 3 years with a mutual consent or agreement of both parties. I mean, the ALT, the JET program participant, and their contracting organization. And it's also possible to renew participation up to a total of 5 years, depending on, again, the agreement, the performance of the participant, and their contracting organizations. Work hours. Participants are expected to be at work approximately 35 hours a week. That's excluding lunch breaks. So from Monday through Friday, you're expected to work between 8:30 a.m. and 5:15 p.m. Please take note, the word is between, which means it can be adjusted within the period as long as your total weekly hours is 35. Organizations give only 10-day paid leaves for ALTs, while others give 20 days, just like in Kobe City. So again, it says here it differs among contracting organizations. Number 3, remuneration. For first year ALTs, the remuneration is approximately 3.36 million yen. For second years, that 3 are taxes and other deductions, which include the National Social Insurance or the health insurance, pension fund program, and the employment insurance. But for the taxes, it depends on the nationality of the JET participant. If their country of residence has an existing treaty or agreement with the Japanese government. For the eligibility criteria, I've already talked about this in my previous video, and I partially covered this also in the earlier part of this video. But let me just emphasize on this part. The following are not part of the eligibility criteria. However, additional considerations will be given to applicants who have language teaching experience and or qualifications, have general teaching experience or qualifications, or have high level of Japanese language ability. So for those who have been asking questions, sending messages, or commenting on my videos, again, I repeat, language teaching experience or qualification, or general classroom teaching experience, or Japanese language skills or ability, that's JLPT or JPT, those are not required. However, additional consideration, additional merits, plus factors if you have those. For number 4, in addition to the above general criteria, CIR applicants must have functional command of the Japanese language. Of course, because they'll be working most of the time as interpreters of the contracting organization and the JET program participants or the ALTs. Based on my research, I found out that for South Africa, they don't have this provision in the general guidelines. As for the application procedures, I mentioned this earlier. For the JET program Philippines, the deadline of submission of application is November 22nd, 2022. That's a Tuesday. The application started or opened last September 12th. For Australia, their deadline of submission is November 11th. They opened the application last September 8th. For New Zealand, the deadline is December 2nd or December 5th. For Singapore, that's November 8th. For South Africa, that's the earliest I found. Their deadline is October 21st. For USA, as I mentioned, deadline is November 18th, but they will open the application on the 26th of this month. UK usually start in October, and USA and UK and Canada, applications are done online. So that's paperless. Great move, USA, UK, and Canada. So for applicants, make sure you refer to this checklist for the documents that you'll be submitting. For the application form, all data must be typewritten except for signature. So because in the previous years, it was allowed for an applicant to write their information or their data by hand or handwritten. But for this year, it says here, must be typewritten. Please sign the form with a wet signature. Wet signature meaning you have to sign it by hand. Number 2, JET program applicant self-report of medical condition or conditions. Again, typewritten except for signature. Certified record or transcript. This is the TOR or OTR, official transcript of records. So all colleges or university courses that you took, you must have your certified records. If the physical copy is not provided by your institution, a printed copy of the digital version must be submitted. If you don't want to submit the original copies, you can submit certified true copies. Number 4 is the essay. That's the statement of purpose. In the previous years, they also have specifications as to the paper size, the margins. For this time, they don't have the word count, but the font style and the font size are specified. So you have to use Arial 10.5. So it must not exceed 2 pages. Next, number 5 or the 5th one, certificate of graduation. If you have not graduated yet, you must submit a certificate of expected date of graduation. If a physical copy is not provided, you can print out a digital version. and then certified true copies may be submitted in lieu of the originals. So, certificate of graduation is different from the diploma. Please take note of this. Number 6, letters of reference or the letters of recommendation. You can ask your former professors or your immediate superiors, your bosses to give you a letter of recommendation either in Japanese or in English. There's no specific format for this. As long as it's a formal letter, it can be accepted as a letter of reference. Number 7, if you have these types of qualifications or certifications, you can submit 3 photocopies only if you have them. For number 8, this is a required document. So, a document that shows your nationality. For example, passport, birth certificate, or others. You don't need to submit the original, just submit photocopies. And then only if you have criminal history, you submit a criminal record. All in all, you have to submit 1 set of original documents plus 2 photocopies, except for your certificate of language proficiency or teaching qualification and the document that shows your nationality. And then I mentioned this earlier, you have to attach the slip on top of the original copy of your application form. You only have to print 1 copy of this slip, this one. So again, this is for JET Program Philippines. For the document requirements, again, based on my research, so for Australia, they don't have number 9. Instead, they have authorization and release form, and then a national police certificate, which is a must for all applicants. Plus, of course, the certificate of health and self-assessment. So the certificate of health, as what I understand, is the certification from a physician. For New Zealand, 3 photocopies and 2 original letters of reference for each reference. They don't need a photocopy anymore. So just like in the JET Program Philippines, they also have all the 9 documents plus the certificate of health, again, which I understand is the certificate of physician. For Singapore, the original documents plus 3 photocopies. Same with New Zealand, by the way. For South Africa, also they have to submit 3 sets. For USA and UK, obviously, since it's online application, they only need 1 copy. Selection and notification of results. The Embassy of Japan in the participant's home country will conduct the first screening